The scorching Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the red sandstone cliffs of the Grand Canyon as 23-year-old Marcus Chen adjusted his hiking backpack one final time. It was July 15th, 2015, and the temperature had already climbed to 95 degrees Fahrenheit by 10 in the morning. The parking lot at the south rim was bustling with tourists, families snapping photos, and seasoned hikers preparing for their descent into one of the world's most magnificent natural wonders. Marcus had been planning this solo hiking trip for months. After graduating from Arizona State University with a degree in geology, he felt drawn to explore the very formations he had studied in textbooks. The Grand Canyon represented everything he loved about the Southwest: its raw beauty, geological complexity, and the challenge it presented to those brave enough to venture beyond the tourist viewpoints. "You sure you don't want company, son?" asked his father, David Chen, as he helped Marcus load the last of his supplies into his weathered Jeep Wrangler. David's weathered hands showed years of construction work, and his concerned expression reflected the worry that had been building since Marcus announced his solo expedition plans. "Dad, I've been hiking these trails since I was 16, Marcus replied, his voice carrying the confidence of youth mixed with genuine expertise. "Besides, I need this time alone. After 4 years of college and all the stress of job hunting, I just need to clear my head and reconnect with what I love most about geology." Marcus's mother, Linda, emerged from their modest Phoenix home carrying a thermos of coffee and a bag of homemade trail mix. Her Filipino heritage showed in her petite frame and the way she fussed over her only child with a mixture of pride and protective concern. "Promise me you'll check in every day," she said, pressing the thermos into his hands. "And don't take any unnecessary risks. The canyon can be unforgiving, especially in this heat." Marcus hugged both his parents, breathing in the familiar scent of his mother's jasmine perfume and his father's aftershave. "I promise, Mum. I'll call every evening when I reach camp. This isn't my first rodeo. I know the canyon's dangers better than most." The drive from Phoenix to the Grand Canyon took Marcus through some of Arizona's most spectacular desert landscape. As he navigated the winding roads, his mind wandered to the geological formations he would encounter. The Bright Angel Trail, his chosen route, would take him through nearly 2 billion years of Earth's history, from the Kaibab limestone at the rim down to the ancient Vishnu schist at the river level. Marcus had meticulously planned his 5-day journey. Day 1 would take him to Indian Garden, a lush oasis halfway down the canyon. Days 2 and 3 would be spent exploring the Colorado River area and the geological formations along Phantom Ranch. Days 4 and 5 would be his ascent back to the rim, with an overnight stop at Indian Garden again. His backpack contained everything an experienced hiker would need: a high-quality tent, sleeping bag rated for desert conditions, water purification tablets, enough food for 6 days, including emergency rations, first aid supplies, navigation equipment, and his prized possession, a professional-grade geological hammer for collecting samples. As Marcus reached the canyon's edge and gazed into the vast chasm before him, he felt the familiar surge of awe that never diminished, no matter how many times he visited. The late morning light painted the canyon walls in brilliant shades of red, orange, and purple, while shadows danced across the ancient rock faces like living things. He pulled out his phone and snapped a selfie with the canyon backdrop, immediately posting it to his Instagram with the caption, "5 days of pure geological heaven ahead. Time to get lost in 2 billion years of Earth's history. Chen Grand Canyon, Chen Geology Life. Solo Adventure." The post quickly garnered likes and comments from college friends and family members, all wishing him safe travels and expressing envy at his adventure. His girlfriend, Sarah, who was spending the summer interning at a law firm in Los Angeles, commented with heart emojis and, "Be safe, my love. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get back." Marcus shouldered his pack and began his descent down the Bright Angel Trail. The well-maintained path was busy with day hikers and tourists making short excursions, but he knew that as he went deeper, the crowds would thin out significantly. The weight of his pack felt comfortable and familiar. He had trained for months, hiking the Phoenix Mountain Preserve trails, with increasingly heavy loads to prepare for this moment. The first mile of the trail was deceptively easy, a gentle switchback descent through the upper canyon layers. Marcus paused frequently to examine the rock formations, taking photos and making notes in his field journal. The Kaibab limestone showed beautiful fossilized marine creatures, evidence of the ancient sea that once covered this region. Each layer told a story spanning millions of years, and Marcus felt like he was reading the Earth's autobiography written in stone. As he descended further, the temperature began to rise noticeably. The canyon walls created a natural oven, trapping heat and making the air shimmer with intensity. Marcus was well prepared for this, having researched extensively about canyon hiking in summer conditions. He maintained a steady pace, stopping every 30 minutes to drink water and rest in whatever shade he could find. By early afternoon, Marcus had reached the 3-mile rest house, a stone shelter built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. Here, he encountered other hikers making the journey to Indian Garden, a retired couple from Minnesota celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary, and a group of college students from Colorado who were attempting their first multi-day canyon hike. "Beautiful day for it," called out the retired man, whose name was Robert. "Though it's getting pretty warm down here. You heading all the way to the river?" "That's the plan," Marcus replied, sharing some of his trail mix with the group. "I'm a geology student. Well, recent graduate, and I've been wanting to do this trip for years. There's nothing quite like seeing these formations up close." The college students peppered him with questions about the rock layers and canyon formation, and Marcus found himself giving an impromptu geology lesson. He explained how the Colorado River had carved through the rock over millions of years, exposing the various geological periods like pages in a book. His enthusiasm was infectious, and soon the entire group was examining the canyon walls with new appreciation. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus bid farewell to his fellow hikers and continued his descent toward Indian Garden. The trail became more challenging, with steeper switchbacks and loose rock that required careful footing. The heat was becoming oppressive, and even with his careful hydration schedule, Marcus could feel the desert environment taking its toll. The landscape around him was stark and beautiful, towering red cliffs, scattered desert vegetation clinging to impossible slopes, and the ever-present sound of wind whistling through the canyon corridors. Occasionally, he would spot a California condor soaring overhead, one of the magnificent birds that had been reintroduced to the area after near extinction. As evening approached, Marcus finally reached Indian Garden, a verdant oasis fed by natural springs that seemed almost miraculous after hours of hiking through the desert environment. The campground was dotted with tents and populated by hikers from around the world, all drawn to experience the canyon's majesty firsthand. Marcus set up his tent in a designated spot and immediately called his parents as promised. The cell service was spotty, but sufficient for a brief conversation. "Made it to Indian Garden right on schedule," he reported, his voice tired but happy. "The hike down was incredible. I got some amazing photos of the red wall limestone formations. Tomorrow I head down to the river." "Be careful, sweetheart." His mother's voice crackled through the poor connection. "The weather report shows it's going to be even hotter tomorrow." "I'll be fine, Mum. I'm well prepared, and I know my limits. Love you both." As Marcus ended the call and prepared his dinner on his portable camp stove, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction and anticipation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and discoveries as he ventured into the deepest parts of the canyon. He had no way of knowing that this would be the last conversation his parents would ever have with their son, or that his carefully planned adventure was about to become something far more sinister than he could ever imagine. The stars emerged brilliantly in the clear desert sky as Marcus settled into his sleeping bag, the sound of the nearby creek providing a soothing soundtrack to his dreams of the geological wonders that awaited him in the depths of the Grand Canyon. Into the depths. Marcus woke before dawn on July 16th, as was his habit on hiking trips. The pre-sunrise hours offered the coolest temperatures of the day, and he wanted to make significant progress toward the Colorado River before the heat became unbearable. The Indian Garden campground was still quiet, with only the soft sounds of early-rising hikers preparing their gear and the gentle babbling of Garden Creek. After a quick breakfast of instant oatmeal and coffee, Marcus packed his gear methodically. Every item had its place, and his years of hiking experience had taught him the importance of organization and weight distribution. He double-checked his water supply, 6 liters total, which should be more than adequate for the day's hike to Phantom Ranch with his planned water refill stops. The Bright Angel Trail from Indian Garden to the Colorado River was Marcus's favorite section of the entire route. This portion of the trail followed Garden Creek through a narrow corridor between towering canyon walls, creating a microclimate that supported lush vegetation rarely seen elsewhere in the desert environment. Cottonwood trees provided blessed shade, and the sound of running water created a peaceful atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the harsh desert landscape above. As Marcus began his descent in the pre-dawn darkness, his headlamp illuminated the well-worn trail ahead. He had hiked this section twice before, but never as part of a multi-day solo expedition. The solitude felt different this time, more profound and somehow more meaningful. This was his chance to truly connect with the geological formations he had studied, to experience them not just as academic subjects, but as living, breathing parts of Earth's history. The first hour of hiking passed quickly as Marcus found his rhythm. The trail was in excellent condition, maintained regularly by the National Park Service, and the cool morning air made for comfortable hiking conditions. As the sun began to rise, painting the canyon walls in brilliant shades of gold and red, Marcus paused frequently to take photographs and make notes in his field journal. At Devil's Corkscrew, a series of steep switchbacks that descended through the Vishnu schist, Marcus encountered another solo hiker, heading in the opposite direction. The man appeared to be in his 50s, with the lean build and weathered appearance of someone who spent considerable time in the outdoors. "Morning," the man called out as they passed. "You're getting an early start." "Best time to hike," Marcus replied, trying to beat the heat. "How was the river?" "Beautiful as always, but it's going to be a scorcher today. Make sure you're carrying plenty of water." The man paused and studied Marcus more carefully. "You hiking alone?" "Yeah, solo trip. I'm a geology student. Well, recent graduate. This is sort of a celebration and research expedition combined." The man nodded approvingly. "Smart to go early. I've been hiking these trails for 20 years, and I've seen too many people get into trouble because they underestimated the canyon. You look well prepared, though. Have a safe trip." As the stranger continued his ascent, Marcus felt a brief moment of unease that he couldn't quite explain. There had been something in the man's eyes, an intensity that seemed out of place for a casual trail encounter. But the feeling passed quickly, as Marcus became absorbed in the geological wonders surrounding him. The Vishnu schist formations were particularly spectacular in the early morning light. These ancient metamorphic rocks, nearly 2 billion years old, represented some of the oldest exposed rock on Earth. Marcus spent considerable time examining the intricate patterns and taking detailed photographs for his personal research project on Precambrian geology. By mid-morning, Marcus had reached the Colorado River and the suspension bridge that would take him across to Phantom Ranch. The sight of the river never failed to amaze him. This relatively modest waterway had carved one of the world's most spectacular canyons through sheer persistence over millions of years. The water was muddy brown from recent rains upstream, and the current was stronger than he had seen on previous visits. Phantom Ranch, located on the north side of the river, was a welcome sight. The historic lodge and cabins, accessible only by hiking, mule train, or river rafting, represented civilization in the heart of the wilderness. Marcus had reserved a campsite for 2 nights, planning to use Phantom Ranch as his base for exploring the geological formations along the river corridor. After setting up his tent in the designated camping area, Marcus spent the afternoon exploring the area around Phantom Ranch. The geological diversity was extraordinary. He could examine rocks, spanning nearly 2 billion years of Earth's history, within a relatively small area. His field journal filled with detailed observations and sketches, and his camera's memory card accumulated hundreds of photographs. That evening, Marcus joined other campers around the communal area near the lodge. The group included a family from Germany on their first Grand Canyon visit, a group of river rafters who had just completed a multi-day trip through the canyon, and several other solo hikers with various backgrounds and motivations for their canyon adventures. "You're the geology guy," said one of the rafters, a woman named Janet who appeared to be in her 40s. "We saw some interesting rock formations upstream that we couldn't identify. Maybe you could take a look at our photos." Marcus spent the next hour examining photographs and discussing the geological history of the canyon with the group. His enthusiasm for the subject was evident, and he found himself giving another impromptu geology lesson, explaining how the different rock layers had formed and what they revealed about ancient environmental conditions. "You should be a park ranger," suggested the German father. "You explain these things better than some of the official guides we've encountered." "I've actually considered it," Marcus admitted. "After I get some more field experience, I might apply for positions with the park. Service. There's something special about sharing this knowledge with people and helping them understand what they're seeing. As the evening progressed, Marcus called his parents from the lodge's payphone, as cell service was non-existent in the canyon depths. Day 2 completed successfully, he reported. I'm at Phantom Ranch now, and the hiking has been incredible. Tomorrow, I'm planning to explore some of the side canyons and do more detailed geological surveys. Are you meeting other people? His mother asked. I worry about you being alone down there. There are plenty of other hikers around, Mom. The canyon community is very supportive. Everyone looks out for each other. I'm being careful and following all the safety protocols. Good. We love you, son. Check in tomorrow evening. After ending the call, Marcus spent some time reviewing his notes and planning the next day's activities. He wanted to explore Bright Angel Creek and examine some of the more remote geological formations that were accessible from Phantom Ranch. His research had identified several areas of particular interest, including some Precambrian rock exposures that weren't commonly visited by casual hikers. As Marcus settled into his sleeping bag that night, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction with his progress. The trip was exceeding his expectations in every way: the geological discoveries, the physical challenge, and the spiritual renewal that came from immersing himself in such a magnificent natural environment. He had no way of knowing that someone had been watching him throughout the day, studying his movements and routines with predatory interest. The man he had encountered that morning on the trail had not continued his ascent as it appeared. Instead, he had doubled back and spent the day observing Marcus from a distance, learning his habits and planning his next move. As Marcus drifted off to sleep to the sound of the Colorado River flowing nearby, his stalker was making final preparations for what would happen the following day. The isolation that Marcus found so appealing for his geological studies would soon become a trap from which there would be no escape. The last thing Marcus remembered before falling asleep was the sound of footsteps on gravel somewhere near his tent, but when he listened more carefully, there was only the wind and the river. He dismissed it as another camper moving around and settled back into his sleeping bag, unaware that his life was about to take a terrifying and tragic turn. The vanishing July 17th, 2015, dawned clear and already warm as Marcus prepared for what he planned to be his most ambitious day of geological exploration. His goal was to hike up Bright Angel Creek to examine some remote Precambrian rock formations that he had identified in his research, but never had the opportunity to study firsthand. The area was off the main tourist routes, which made it perfect for detailed scientific observation without crowds of sightseers. Marcus left Phantom Ranch early, carrying a day pack with water, lunch, his geological tools, and camera equipment. He informed the lodge staff of his planned route and expected return time, a standard safety protocol that he always followed religiously. The ranger on duty, a seasoned park employee named Tom Rodriguez, made note of Marcus's itinerary in the daily log. "That's a beautiful area you're heading to," Tom commented as he reviewed Marcus's planned route. "Not many people make it up that far. The geology up there is spectacular, some of the oldest exposed rock in North America. That's exactly why I want to see it," Marcus replied enthusiastically. "I'm working on a research project about Precambrian formations, and this could provide some incredible data. Just remember that you'll be pretty isolated once you get beyond the first mile or so. Stick to the established trails, carry extra water, and don't take any unnecessary risks. The canyon can be unforgiving, especially for solo hikers." Marcus assured the ranger that he would be careful and began his hike up Bright Angel Creek. The trail followed the creek through a narrow canyon within the larger Grand Canyon, creating a unique ecosystem supported by the year-round water source. The morning was pleasantly cool, and Marcus made good time as he hiked deeper into the backcountry. The geological formations along Bright Angel Creek were even more spectacular than Marcus had anticipated. The creek had cut through multiple rock layers, creating a natural cross-section that revealed millions of years of geological history. Marcus stopped frequently to take photographs, collect small samples, and make detailed notes in his field journal. About 3 miles from Phantom Ranch, Marcus encountered the man he had briefly met on the trail the previous morning. The stranger was sitting on a large boulder beside the creek, apparently taking a rest break. This time Marcus got a better look at him, mid-50s, average height but powerfully built, with graying hair and intense blue eyes that seemed to study everything with unsettling focus. "We meet again," the man said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm Dale Morrison. I don't think we properly introduced ourselves yesterday. Marcus Chen, Marcus replied, extending his hand. Nice to meet you properly. I thought you were heading out of the canyon yesterday. Change of plans, Dale said, his grip lingering a moment too long during the handshake. I decided to spend a few more days exploring some of the more remote areas. Like you, I prefer the solitude of the backcountry to the crowds at the popular viewpoints. Something about Dale's presence made Marcus uncomfortable, though he couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. Perhaps it was the way Dale seemed to be studying him, or the fact that his story about changing plans didn't quite ring true. Marcus had learned to trust his instincts in the wilderness, and those instincts were telling him to be cautious. Well, I should keep moving, Marcus said, shouldering his pack. I want to reach the formations I'm studying before it gets too hot. Mind if I tag along for a while? Dale asked. I'm heading in the same direction, and it's always safer to travel with a partner in the backcountry. Marcus felt trapped by social convention. Refusing would seem rude and paranoid, especially since Dale's suggestion about safety was technically sound. Sure, he said reluctantly, though I should warn you that I'll be stopping frequently to examine rock formations. It might be pretty boring if you're not into geology. I find geology fascinating, Dale replied, falling into step beside Marcus. Tell me about what you're looking for. As they hiked together, Marcus found himself explaining his research project and pointing out various geological features. Dale asked intelligent questions and seemed genuinely interested, which helped ease Marcus's initial discomfort. Perhaps his uneasiness had been unfounded. Dale appeared to be simply another outdoor enthusiast with an interest in the natural world. They hiked together for about an hour, with Marcus stopping periodically to examine rock formations and take photographs. Dale was a competent hiker and seemed familiar with the terrain, though he claimed to be visiting the area for the first time. This inconsistency nagged at Marcus, but he tried to dismiss his concerns as paranoia. When they reached a particularly spectacular exposure of Vishnu schist, Marcus became completely absorbed in his geological observations. The rock formation showed beautiful examples of metamorphic folding and mineral alignment that would be perfect for his research. He spent nearly 30 minutes taking detailed photographs from multiple angles and collecting small samples. This is incredible, Marcus said, his excitement evident as he examined a particularly interesting mineral vein. These formations are nearly 2 billion years old. You're looking at some of the oldest rocks on Earth. Fascinating, Dale replied, but Marcus noticed that the man wasn't looking at the rocks. Instead, Dale was scanning the surrounding area, as if checking to see if anyone else was nearby. The trail had been empty for the past hour. They hadn't encountered any other hikers since leaving the main Phantom Ranch area. Marcus's unease returned with sudden intensity. Something was definitely wrong with this situation. Dale's behavior, his inconsistent story, and the way he kept watching the trail rather than showing genuine interest in the geology, all combined to trigger Marcus's alarm instincts. I think I'm going to head back, Marcus said abruptly, beginning to pack up his equipment. The heat is getting pretty intense, and I want to make sure I have enough water for the return hike. Actually, Marcus, Dale said, his voice taking on a different tone, harder and more menacing, I don't think you're going anywhere. Marcus looked up from his pack to find Dale holding a large hunting knife. The blade gleamed in the harsh canyon sunlight, and Dale's entire demeanor had changed. The friendly hiker facade had vanished, replaced by something cold and predatory. What do you want? Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through his body. His mind raced, trying to assess his options. They were miles from help, in a remote area where no one would hear him scream. Your pack, your equipment, your wallet, Dale said matter-of-factly, and then we're going to take a little walk to somewhere even more private. Marcus realized with growing horror that this wasn't just a robbery. Dale had been stalking him, learning his routines, and had lured him to this isolated location with deliberate intent. The man's familiarity with the terrain suggested this wasn't his first time using the canyon's remote areas for criminal purposes. Look, you can have whatever you want, Marcus said, slowly raising his hands. My wallet, my equipment, everything. Just let me go, and I won't report this to anyone. Dale laughed, a sound devoid of humor. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Marcus. You see, I can't have you identifying me to the authorities, and I've put too much planning into this to let you just walk away. Marcus's geological training had taught him to observe details and think systematically under pressure. He quickly assessed his surroundings, looking for escape routes or anything that could be used as a weapon. The creek was about 20 feet to his left, flowing swiftly over rocky terrain. The canyon walls rose steeply on both sides, making climbing impossible. His only option was to try to get past Dale and run back down the trail toward Phantom Ranch. "You've been planning this?" Marcus asked, trying to keep Dale talking while he looked for an opportunity to escape. "For weeks," Dale admitted with disturbing pride. "I study the hiking permits, identify solo hikers with expensive equipment, and then I follow them into the backcountry. The canyon is perfect for this kind of work. So many places where people can just disappear without a trace." The casual way Dale spoke about his criminal activities made Marcus's blood run cold. This man was clearly a predator who had done this before, and Marcus realized he was fighting for his life. In that moment, Marcus made his decision. Rather than comply and hope for mercy that clearly wouldn't come, he would take his chances with a desperate escape attempt. He had youth and fitness on his side, and his familiarity with the terrain might give him an advantage. "Please," Marcus said, taking a small step backward. "I have parents who love me. I just graduated college. I have my whole life ahead of me." "Should have thought of that before you decided to hike alone," Dale replied coldly, advancing with the knife raised. Marcus suddenly threw his heavy geological hammer at Dale's head and sprinted toward the creek. The hammer struck Dale in the shoulder, causing him to stumble and curse, but it didn't incapacitate him. Marcus crashed through the brush along the creek bank, branches tearing at his clothes and skin as he ran for his life. Behind him, he could hear Dale crashing through the vegetation in pursuit, shouting threats and curses. Marcus's only hope was to reach the main trail and find other hikers who could help him. But he was still miles from Phantom Ranch and even farther from any area where he might encounter other people. The chase through the rugged canyon terrain would determine whether Marcus Chen would ever see his family again, or whether he would become another mysterious disappearance in the vast wilderness of the Grand Canyon. 7 years later, Detective Sarah Martinez of the Coconino County Sheriff's Office had seen many strange cases during her 15-year career in law enforcement, but the discovery at the Grand Canyon on July 23, 2022, would haunt her for years to come. A park maintenance crew conducting routine trail maintenance along a remote section of Bright Angel Creek had made a discovery that would finally provide answers to one of the area's most puzzling missing person cases. "What exactly did you find?" Sarah asked Tom Rodriguez, the same park ranger who had logged Marcus Chen's hiking plans 7 years earlier. Tom had requested law enforcement assistance after the maintenance crew's disturbing discovery. "It's better if I show you," Tom replied grimly. "We've cordoned off the area and haven't disturbed anything since the initial discovery." The hike to the discovery site took Sarah and her forensics team nearly 2 hours. The location was approximately 4 miles from Phantom Ranch, in an area that was rarely visited by casual hikers. The terrain was rugged and challenging, accessible only to experienced backcountry enthusiasts willing to venture far from the established tourist routes. "Here," Tom said, pointing to a large boulder beside Bright Angel Creek. The maintenance crew was clearing debris from the trail when they noticed something unusual about this rock formation. Sarah approached the boulder. Carefully, her trained eye immediately spotting what had caught the maintenance crew's attention. On the surface of the rock, clearly visible despite 7 years of weathering, were dark stains that could only be dried blood. The stains formed a distinctive pattern, suggesting significant trauma had occurred at this location. "There's more," Tom said, leading Sarah around to the other side of the boulder. "This is what really got our attention. Wedged into a crack in the rock, barely visible, unless you knew exactly where to look, was a gold ring." Sarah carefully extracted it using tweezers and examined it closely. The ring was a class ring from Arizona State University, dated 2015, with the initials MC engraved on the inside. "Marcus Chen," Sarah said quietly, "the geology student who disappeared 7 years ago." "That's what we think," Tom confirmed. "I remember him clearly. Nice kid, very well prepared, followed all the safety protocols. When he didn't return from his day hike, we launched a massive search operation. We covered hundreds of square miles, used helicopters, search dogs, everything. Never found a trace of him." Sarah spent the next several hours meticulously documenting the scene. The forensics team collected samples of the bloodstains, photographed everything from multiple angles, and searched the surrounding area for any additional evidence. The location was remote enough that the scene had remained largely undisturbed for 7 years, preserved by the dry desert climate. The blood pattern suggests a violent struggle, noted Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the forensics specialist. Based on the amount and distribution, someone was seriously injured here, possibly fatally. But where's the body? Sarah asked. If Marcus died here, what happened to his remains? Tom pointed toward the creek, which flowed swiftly over rocky terrain toward the Colorado River. Flash floods are common in these narrow canyons. Body could have been washed downstream and buried under tons of sediment. Or, he paused, clearly uncomfortable with his next thought. Or someone moved it, Sarah finished. This could have been a homicide. The investigation that followed would consume Sarah's attention for months. She reviewed the original missing person file, interviewed Marcus's family and friends, and examined every piece of evidence from the 2015 disappearance. The case had gone cold quickly back then. Solo hikers occasionally vanished in the vast wilderness of the Grand Canyon, and without any evidence of foul play, it had been classified as a probable hiking accident. But the discovery of the ring and blood evidence changed everything. This was now a potential homicide investigation, and Sarah was determined to find answers for the Chen family after 7 years of uncertainty. The breakthrough came when Sarah decided to review all hiking permits issued in the weeks surrounding Marcus's disappearance. She was looking for anyone who might have been in the area at the same time, particularly other solo hikers who could have encountered Marcus on the trail. One name appeared on multiple permits over a period of several years: Dale Morrison. The man had been hiking the Grand Canyon's backcountry regularly, always alone, always targeting remote areas. More disturbing, Sarah discovered that Morrison's hiking trips often coincided with other missing person cases throughout the Southwest. This guy is a serial predator, Sarah told her supervisor, Captain Robert Hayes. I think he's been using remote hiking areas to target solo hikers for years. Marcus Chen wasn't his first victim, and he probably wasn't his last. The investigation into Dale Morrison revealed a disturbing pattern. The man was a drifter with a criminal history of assault and robbery. He had been using false identities and had been living off the grid, supporting himself by robbing and possibly killing hikers in remote wilderness areas across multiple states. Tracking Morrison down took months of painstaking detective work. Sarah coordinated with law enforcement agencies across the Southwest, following a trail of similar disappearances and unsolved cases. The breakthrough came when Morrison was arrested in Utah for attempting to rob a hiker in Zion National Park. DNA, evidence from the Grand Canyon crime scene, matched samples taken from Morrison, finally providing the proof needed to charge him with Marcus's murder. On a cold December morning in 2022, Sarah drove to Phoenix to personally deliver the news to David and Linda Chen. The couple had aged visibly in the 7 years since their son's disappearance, their grief evident in every line on their faces. "We found him," Sarah said simply as she sat in their living room. "We found evidence of what happened to Marcus, and we've arrested the man responsible." Linda Chen broke down in tears, 7 years of uncertainty finally replaced by the terrible certainty of loss. David held his wife close, his own eyes filled with tears as he struggled to process the news. "Can you tell us what happened?" David asked quietly. Sarah explained the evidence they had discovered and the investigation that followed. She was careful to spare them the most graphic details, while providing enough information to give them closure. The Chen family had lived with hope for 7 years that Marcus might somehow still be alive. Now they could finally begin the process of truly grieving their loss. "He was a good boy," Linda whispered. "He just wanted to study rocks and share his love of geology with the world. Why did this have to happen to him?" "I wish I had answers to that question," Sarah replied. "But I can promise you that the man who did this will face justice." Marcus's case helped us identify a serial killer who had been preying on hikers for years. Your son's death may have saved other lives by helping us catch this predator. Dale Morrison was eventually convicted of Marcus Chen's murder and linked to several other disappearances across the Southwest. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case brought some measure of closure to the Chen family and provided answers to other families whose loved ones had vanished in remote wilderness areas. The Grand Canyon continues to attract millions of visitors each year, drawn by its spectacular beauty and the sense of adventure it offers. Most experience the canyon safely and return home with memories that last a lifetime. But Marcus Chen's story serves as a sobering reminder that even in our modern world, Predators exist who prey on the innocent and vulnerable. The Chen family established a scholarship fund in Marcus's memory to support geology students pursuing careers in the National Park Service. They wanted to ensure that their son's passion for sharing the wonders of the natural world would continue to inspire future generations of scientists and educators. As Sarah Martinez reflected on the case years later, she was struck by the randomness of evil and the importance of never giving up on seeking justice for victims and their families. Marcus Chen had been a young man with his whole life ahead of him, pursuing his passion in one of the world's most beautiful places. His tragic death reminded everyone that we must look out for one another, especially in the wilderness where help can be far away. The ring found on that blood-stained rock became a symbol of persistence, both of the evil that had taken Marcus's life and of the determination of those who refused to let his case remain unsolved. 7 years after his disappearance, Marcus Chen finally received the justice he deserved, and his family found the closure they needed to heal. If this story moved you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories that explore the mysteries and tragedies that occur in our national parks and wilderness areas. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light and honoring the memories of those we've lost. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore another case that reminds us to stay vigilant and look out for one another, no matter where our adventures take us.